The MedTech pitch is back, and so is the stellar cast of judges that will choose this year's winner. Umberto Matsuda, CEO and Managing Partner, Matsuda Invest. Umberto Matsuda is the Managing Partner at Matsuda Invest, an alternative investment and business development firm based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. He has over 20 years of experience, having managed several funds and direct investments in tech startups. John David Friedland, better known as JD, is the Managing Director of Ventures at Cleveland Clinic, focusing on medical device investments. He holds a BS from USC and an MBA from Wharton. Alberto Chan, Head of Finance and Corporate Development, Lifeblood Capital. Alberto's professional healthcare experience includes VC, startups and fortune companies in Brazil, China and the US. He is experienced in fundraising and product management. He holds an MBA and a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering. Kenneth Nelson, Partner, MedTech Advantage Fund. Ken Nelson is a partner at MedTech Advantage Fund and collaborates with the global accelerator MedTech Innovator. With 20 years in the medical device space, he chairs Cardiac Care's board and serves on board of several cardiac digital health startups, including HeartX and HeartBeam. He earned a BA from Vanderbilt and lives in Dallas. David Sylvan, soon-to-be Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, remains President of UH Ventures at University Hospitals. With 35 years of corporate experience, David has excelled in various sectors, including key bank capital markets. He's also an adjunct professor at Case Western Reserve University, mentors extensively, and holds a degree from the University of Witwatersrand and CWRU. Kwame Ulmer is a venture partner at Wavemaker 360 Health. He leads the MedTech practice and participates in all aspects of fund management. Darshana Zavre, Managing Partner, Catalyst Health Ventures. Darshana is co-founder and managing partner of Catalyst Health Ventures, leading CHV's investments in the medical device and diagnostics market. Darshana currently serves as an advisor of the Deshpande Center of Technological Innovation at MIT, as a board director of the New England Venture Capital Association, and as a lead advisor of the Portfolio Femtech Fund. Linus Reeder, Principal, 415 Capital Management GmbH. He currently holds a board observer role at Trikers and previously worked for 4K Investments as an associate and for RBC Capital Management as analysis in healthcare IBD. Linus holds a BSc from King's College London and an MPHIL from the University of Cambridge. Marion Zamit leads the investment promotion department within Malta Enterprise and holds a first-class bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry, as well as a master's in business administration from the University of Malta. Marion has over a decade of experience in the pharmaceutical sector, covering manufacturing to sales and marketing. Good luck to all the participants, and let the pitches begin.
So, for the founders and CEOs who's going to be pitching, I'm going to explain the order of the company so everyone's on the same page. We're going to have Acor AI first, Vesstech second, VayWay third, Modus Health fourth, Retia Medical fifth, Scandinavian Real Heart sixth, Innova Vascular seventh, Methinks AI eighth, Access Vascular ninth, and Volta Medical 10th. So that'll be the order. The rules, 4 minutes to pitch and 4 minutes for Q&A. Founders, you'll have a timer on the screen here, so you will be able to manage your time that way. Any questions before we get started? All right, so I'll welcome the first founder up, Philip Peters with Acor AI.
Thank you very much. So for those of you that weren't in this room before, these gentlemen and ladies here gave us the pitch book on what not to do. So about 1,000 ways to take this wrong, and they had this little scorecard here, which feels like a cruel game of bingo. Anyways, my name is Phil Peters. I am the co-founder and CEO of Acor AI. Acor AI is a combination of three words: acoustic, core, and AI. So we're listening to the heart with AI. The problem is that of heart failure. It is a condition whereby the heart muscle is too weak to efficiently pump blood to the rest of the body. It affects over 60 million patients globally. 80% of these patients are diagnosed too late. 45% of these patients remain unstable despite treatment, and they have one of the highest readmission rates out of all patient groups. Intracardiac pressure monitoring, or what's otherwise known as measuring the blood pressure inside the heart, is the single most important way to manage, and the only proven way to manage these heart failure patients, but only invasive solutions exist in the in-hospital setting today, represented by right heart catheterization. The solution is that of the Acor AI Heart Monitor. It is a handheld, scalable, and non-invasive intracardiac pressure monitoring device, which is able to estimate the pulmonary artery pressures directly, which will lead to fewer complications, reduced length of stay, and lower readmission rates throughout the heart failure patient workflow. We are initially targeting the in-hospital workflow with the goal of improving health equity for these patients, as well as improving throughput through the hospital workflow. The technology is based on what we call the SAVE sensor system. We have borrowed heavily from the oil and gas industry and engine diagnostic space to derive this hardware architecture, which is supported and protected by 3 granted patent families and some very large proprietary data sets that we built up together with our partners over the past 4 years. We leverage AI to analyze the raw sensor data coming from the device, and it then allows us to estimate the intracardiac pressures directly with a primary focus on the pulmonary artery diastolic pressure. We are an FDA Breakthrough Device designated device, and we recently received our TAP program recognition as well. The market, as you all know, is relatively large, over 60 million patients globally, 6 million in the US, 10 million in Europe. We are initially targeting the in-hospital market. The reason for that is that we believe the ability and willingness to pay is much higher there, and it comes with fewer clinical workflow friction than some of the other remote monitoring workflows that we could target. I would probably encourage you to look at the logos here. To date, we have enrolled over 400 patients and been able to demonstrate accuracy equivalence to the invasive gold standard. We have partnered with some of the world's leading heart failure clinics around the world, across Europe and the US. We are currently running a 1,200 patient clinical study to further validate the product in a global patient population, which is being run across 6 countries and 14 hospitals. We expect to have our FDA de novo grant by early 2025 and our CE marking shortly thereafter. The team consists of myself and my co-founders. We are a technical co-founding team, and what we mean by that is that we have the technical skills in-house to have brought this from ideation to design freeze. We have since filled up the management team with some fantastic people who have taken Class 1 to Class 3 devices to the market before from a regulatory, quality, clinical, and of course also commercialization perspective. We have also been able to surround ourselves with some world-leading advisors, not only on the heart failure and pulmonary hypertension clinical side of things, but also with some former MedTech entrepreneurs, as well as executives from some of the largest heart failure organizations in the world, who've continued to support our journey. We have had $4 million investments to date from leading MedTech VCs, healthcare systems in the US, as well as heart failure pharma companies. We are currently raising a $4 million round. We have about $3 million of that committed, and we would welcome any conversation to take that further. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for having my back to you guys, but some of you heard this before, so.
So two questions. From a comparison standpoint, both on cost and diagnostic accuracy, how do you stack up to Abbott's CardioMEMS, the implantable device?
So on an accuracy perspective, when we looked at what they were able to achieve versus a right heart cath and what we're able to achieve versus a right heart cath, for pulmonary artery diastolic pressure, for example, we are on par with CardioMEMS. From an economic standpoint, we are a multi-patient use tool intended for use in the hospital setting. So we are able to be used on multiple patients, whereas CardioMEMS can only be used on one patient at a time. We have put the rough calculations at about 20,000 net savings per device per year, and that's based off an annual selling price of around $7,500.
how easy or difficult is it for a patient to use?
So just in case there's anyone from FDA in the room, we are a device that's indicated for use by healthcare professionals. Theoretically, it is like putting a smartphone on top of your chest as you're lying down. We do have models that detect whether the device has been placed in the correct manner as well. But as I mentioned, we're saving the remote monitoring market for later. We want to target the in-hospital market first and then evolve from there as a company.
What do you think about patient compliance when you go, outside of the hospital? How do you tend to manage that, or what do you think about managing that?
We don't like patient compliance in general. I think they're typically older patients, and they typically have many comorbidities. That comes with difficulties in adhering to patient compliance. We worry about physician compliance as well, and actually looking at the data from a remote monitoring device. And then lastly, just ensuring that the infrastructure of transmitting the data works well as well are headaches that we would rather avoid for now and kind of save for the future.
Is there a reimbursement code that you could leverage for out-of-hospital use?
So there is currently no reimbursement code for us. We are leveraging kind of the DRG code payments for heart failure hospitalization. And we are also part of the TAP program now. So we are just starting our conversation with payers and FDA at the same time, which may or may not lead to a reimbursement code straight off the bat.
So maybe building on that, can you talk a little bit about the cost-benefit analysis argument that you would make to a hospital system about adopting this relative to the current standard of care?
Yeah, so we're targeting that hospitalized heart failure patient workflow initially. So the goal there is to reduce complications associated with unnecessary right heart catheterizations for the particularly fragile patients, avoiding over or under medication, so kind of getting that diuretic optimization right. Reducing length of stay is one we believe we can do, and we're kind of borrowing from the CardioMEMS playbook there, being able to be more aggressive with up titration and down titration of medication. And then lastly, making sure we only discharge stable patients, right? So as you may or may not know, around 40%, if not more, of heart failure patients are currently discharged when they still have some form of residual congestion. And these are the patients that tend to come back in just a few days later with another acute decompensation and a permanent deterioration in cardiac function, right? And that's what will help avoid. And then lastly, there's that productivity piece of shifting care from cardiologists to nurses as well.
Where are you in sites lined up for the FDA study?
So 12 out of 14 sites are live. We've enrolled 200 patients to date in about 2 months and a week. And we're looking to finish that by end of Q2 2024. Thank you very much.
Up next, we have Joe Rafferty with Vesstech.
Two words for everybody. Strategic variation. Was that from the last panel? Okay. Hi, Joe Rafferty from Vesstech. We're raising $16 million in Series B, and there will be a follow-on for a Series C, so we could tranche that also for commercialization. We are using the $16 million for our pivotal trial. We'll be funding a 100-patient 510K IDE study. The suture-tight catheter is our platform technology. It delivers preloaded nitinol sutures in a over-the-wire catheter, and it attaches aortic aneurysm grafts percutaneously to the aorta, either at the initial implant or there's a very large population that are coming back and have to be repaired. Physicians have no tools. It is a platform. We just had a discussion with a gentleman from one of the global strategics about using this in TAVR all the way down to the iliac, so we can take this platform and use it very flexibly. What's the problem? Globally, when a patient has an aortic aneurysm, diagnosed with an aortic aneurysm, they have 2 therapeutic options: open surgical repair. If you have a comorbidity, there's about a 20% chance you're not getting off the table. 80% of the patients around the world have what's called an EVAR, or endovascular repair. 2 small holes in the artery of the groin, and the graft is placed. The challenge is nothing is holding the graft in place to the aorta. So when the aorta continues to expand and physicians have no predictability relative to which will and which won't, the graft leaks. Our device goes up over the same guide wire through the same sheath and secures the graft in place very quickly. From an investor standpoint, we've done a very good job of de-risking this conversation. We know the device works. We've had 7 clinical cases. We'll do 6 more this quarter. 180 days out, the patient's doing quite well. Sutures are in place, no migration, no leaks. Globally, the KOLs are in alignment. Many are investors. We have a clear 510K pathway because we've had 5 pre-subs with FDA. It has 3 published patents were secured all across the world. There are a number of very large, big, lucrative global endovascular exits. And oh, by the way, it's an 80% gross margin. The key opinion leaders are saying this is the definition of insanity. We've been doing things the same way and not getting the results. You may recognize Sean Lydon there. He did one of our first cases. Why is it important now? This population around the world is essentially a single payer. They're usually senior citizens in the US or single payer around the world. We can't afford this extra $1 billion a year in repair procedures. So it is a global impact, a global healthcare impact. We'll target the initial implant. We'll target the 1 million patients out there that have existing implants. There are existing DRGs and CPTs, both for the hospital to get reimbursed and for the physicians to get reimbursed. If we were to tuck into a global strategic, a 50% TAM would be around $700 million. We are prepared to go to market if required. That is Sean Lydon there, dressed up, and the picture on the left, and then Latvia. I'm not going to show the video, but it is very simple. The catheter goes up, the suture comes out. When physicians see it, they say, of course, this will work. We've been doing this for time immemorial. It's what it looks like through and through the adventitia. Big exits, lucrative exits. 1 competitor. Physicians are waiting for new devices. This is first generation stuff. Designed by physicians to answer all the clinical challenges. Patents. We're going to use the $16 million for our pivotal trial. They know who we are. That was the head count there was the personnel was the last slide. So.
Joe, could you just double click on the financial model? I wasn't sure I fully caught that.
I'm sorry.
The financial model. Could you double click on that?
I didn't have one up there. Our financial model is very simply we're pricing it at approximately $3,500 list price. We'll sell it to the hospitals. They'll get their pound of flesh at $2,500. We are 80% gross margin. We've been encouraged by physicians to price it so that they'll pull multiple devices off the shelf for each case, and it wouldn't be overbearing for an administration to say $2,500 to $5,000. And then if they start to tack down the iliac limbs, it could be another $7,500. And then, as I said, by design, it's at 80% gross margin at those prices.
So the $16 million is to fund the pivotal study. Is that correct?
It is.
Any other clinical evidence that you have to support the validity of the technology?
Well, we've done 15 preclinical studies before going to globally. Really, we were in Canada doing compassionate use, and then over in Latvia. So we've done 7 cases. We'll do 6 more this quarter. I'll be in Latvia again November 9th doing 3 cases with Dr. Krevins, Denise Krevins. Venki Ramaya from Arizona Heart will be doing his, I guess, 4th, 5th, and 6th case.
So other than capital, what do you feel like you need most right now?
Other than capital?
Yeah.
We've got a very experienced team from an engineering and clinical and commercial. We'd like to bring on full-time our clinical folks. They're right now consultants. They need to gear up. We've got our electronic medical records, et cetera. We need to gear up our clinical sites. We need to gear up in Australia. We've opened up our Australian LLC to take advantage of that tax benefit or that investment credit. So we need to get that geared up down there, and that's all essentially contingent on getting this funding.
And any idea on best guess as how far away you are from being able to submit? I know you need the pivotal study done, but are you a year away? Are you 2 years away? Like how far?
FDA has been very clear. Again, we've had 5 pre-subs. They've been very clear. 510K, Aptus is our predicate device. Do 105 patients. Follow them for 12 months. We'll consent them for 5 years because we want to follow them. SVS guidelines say that they have to be studied every year, so we'll be able to catch that data point as a course of requirement from SVS, and we'll track that for our own marketing. We'll also tag team along with this real-world clearance or expansion of indications that FDA's just granted with some of the EP companies. Our SAB said, get us a basic clearance and then let us do that real-world data collection with a registry, a real-world registry. Make sense?
So just to clarify one point, the cases that have been to date, those are EFS cases or those are compassionate use cases?
In Canada, Dr. Bao Bui has an experience with Health Canada. He petitions for compassionate use.
Okay.
In Latvia, we have a protocol set up to do arguably pre-IDE cases.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, up next is Jordan Pollock with VayWay.
Excellent. I am so thrilled to be here. I am Jordan Pollock, the CEO of VayWay. I'm from Israel. Yes, I am here. I made it here. Don't worry. I'd like to introduce you to a couple of patients that are near and dear to my heart. First, I'd like you to meet Sophie. Sophie is a 39-year-old woman who had so much pain in her arm that she couldn't even carry her children. I'd like you to meet Susie. Susie had been intervened on 4 times in her lower legs from blockages in her veins that she was begging the physicians to amputate her legs. And here, Steve, he had been intervened on in a previous case that took over 5 hours, and in the end, he was still sent home without treatment. In all of these cases, these patients were suffering from chronic blockages in their veins without effective treatments. And in these 3 compassionate use cases, we came in with Traversa. Traversa is the first device designed specifically for crossing all chronic venous occlusions quickly, reliably, and safely. We have a steerable needle that can be rotated from 360 degrees around, bent 60 degrees, and advanced forward and back, along with an anchor that allows us to hold the catheter in place while advancing that needle just like a hot knife through butter. So what am I talking about, chronic venous occlusions? These are blockages in the veins that start as acute deep vein thrombosis. A blood clot happens if you sit on a plane too long. It can happen to anybody. Our patients are not old. 50% of patients, even though they're successfully treated for a DVT, will come back with recurrent deep vein thrombosis, and this is known as post-thrombotic syndrome. And these clots turn into a mass of collagen and fibrin that is essentially scar tissue. They do not have the effective tools today to treat them in the cath lab. It's a very MacGyver-like approach with back-end to guide wires. I've seen off-label uses of needles. I've seen cases last 5 hours, 6 hours, and they still send the patient home without being treated. How is that acceptable in today's healthcare experience? Besides Susie, Sophie, and Steve, there are 3 million patients across the US and Europe suffering from post-thrombotic syndrome who are told to go home and suffer. So, with Traversa, we are the first device on the market for safe, consistent, and fast venous recanalization. When you can provide a device like Traversa, instead of occupying the cath lab all day with one patient, you can now treat 3, 4, 5. It becomes a very easy, efficient machine. Additionally, instead of spending $20,000 on the procedure to not receive any reimbursement, you can now get that reimbursement on every single one of your procedures, which is providing the healthcare system incredible value. We have some of the best advisors in the entire world between Michael Lichtenberg and Human Jali, who did 2 cases with us, Dr. Stephen Black, who is the #1 vascular surgeon in Europe, and Jerry O'Sullivan. We are an experienced team, myself, a former Boston Scientific alum, my CTO, Ben, incredible engineer, and we're a graduate of the MedX Accelerator. It includes our board, along with a former member who used to be running Cleveland Clinic Ventures, Mr. Tom Sudow. Here today, I stand in front of you with a very simple ask. We're raising $5 million, part of a Series A, supports a 30-patient clinical trial that does not include the 3 compassionate use cases we did previously, supports a 510(k) submission and clearance by mid-25, along with European approval at that point. So I ask you, please, come join me on this journey so we can help our patients get back up and walking again.
Jordan, really impressive. I've seen you in 2 different countries in the last 2 weeks since the war broke out, and just tremendous amount of courage for you to even get out here. So congrats on that. Really love what the company's doing. In terms of the clinical evidence that you feel like you need to get through FDA clearance, how many, do you think 30 patients is enough, or?
Yeah, so to answer your question, how much clinical evidence is needed, we did that with a pre-sub. So we went in, we said 30 patients. In Israel, there's something called success-oriented thinking, where we just say what we want to ask for and not wait for the FDA to tell us. And they took it, so.
Quick question, are you addressing also patients that have stent ingrowth? Can you also cross those patients?
Great, so the question about in-stent versus native, we are actually indicated for all indications of chronic venous occlusions. We've done, in those 3 cases, we actually did 1 of each case. We did native lower limb, in-stent lower limb, and upper limb native occlusions as well.
Will you be getting CE marking as well? Is that in your plans?
Yeah, of course we'll be going for CE mark. We'll do that after, because the US has become easier these days.
There's a lot happening in the peripheral market in the PAD space, especially also with bioresorbables. Where do you see that going into the venous space, and how does that affect your patient population?
The question around whether peripheral arterial disease and whether that comes in the venous space, look, if the devices in the arteries worked in the veins, I wouldn't be standing here today. So it's, as I mentioned, the occlusion is different, the blockages are different. The only thing that arteries and veins have in common is that they both carry blood. Otherwise, they are incredibly different. And I'm happy to, after this, to jump in to talk to you about the scientific differences.
No, sorry, not sure if you covered this, but how are you thinking about payment in the space?
Yeah, great question. No, I didn't go through reimbursement in this pitch because I only had 4 minutes, but we do have codes in the US to cover these procedures. They're lump sum payments. They actually pay out $10,000 in outpatient ambulatory surgical centers, and we also pay out over $22,000 in inpatient. And therefore, as I mentioned, it's a value play, right? If you're spending 5 hours in the cath lab opening $20,000 worth of devices and sending the patient home without treating them, you actually are losing money on these procedures. So one tool that guarantees you crossing gets through 4 to 5 procedures a day instead. It's a great revenue driver for the hospital.
Have you seen any risks on your current studies, on your design freeze, on your in animal studies?
Asking a question about risk around the device. Like everything in medical devices, it's a risk-based approach. People have asked me about risks of perforation of the vein and various things. First of all, you have a scarred over vein with no blood flow. So even if you do perforate, there are no what we call clinical sequela, meaning consequences to that. And you put in a balloon and stent anyway, you create a lumen. And actually today, with all of their MacGyver-like approaches, they're perforating left and right. It's really just the fact that what's the benefit for the patient versus the risk. And we see that there's only benefit here. The risk is quite minimal in the venous system.
User interface for the clinician, how much does this look and feel like something that the interventionalist is comfortable with?
Great question, John. I actually have the device over here. I'd be happy to show it to you, but we have only received positive feedback in our usability studies and with our physicians.
Thank you.
All right. Up next is Terry Chu with Modus Health.
Hello there. So here at Modus Health, we accurately measure mobility to improve treatments, therapies, and drugs. So in order to improve mobility, you have to be able to measure it accurately. The best way for me to convey this is to share with you a story that came out of a clinic in Norway. They had a 10-year-old little boy who went through standard of care, and at the end of it, they had to tell him that he'd never leave his wheelchair. Ingvild didn't accept that. She went to the scientific literature, she learned about our product, and that if you used it to make sure you're increasing his walking dose over time, there was a chance that he could walk on his own. She did that, and at the end of it, he's now playing football with his friends. And so this is what it means to be able to improve mobility. You can improve what you can't measure, and other wearables are unreliable at measuring walking in patients with slow or regular walking styles. We have lots of validation, but with this particular study, what I'd like to point out is that the other wearables had a percentage of patients where they didn't detect one step while the patient walked continuously for 6 minutes. Whereas Stepwatch, our product, was accurate in all 166 inpatients. Because of this, we're now getting worldwide recognition as the gold standard for measuring real-world mobility, and we're used as such by companies Google, Samsung, and others. Our markets are those that care about accuracy. So I view our academic research market as really our marketing branch, and this is because their validation fuels our growth in clinical trials and clinical care. With a $1.25 million pre-seed round, we're able to commercialize 2 wearable medical devices, Stepwatch 4 and Stepwatch 5, 7 mobile apps addressing the unique needs of our market, and we have a licensing deal. All of that together, we are earning $1 million in annual recurring revenue, and we have achieved cash flow positive. But we're really just getting started because the addressable market is really huge in inpatient care alone. This was based on a paper that included all inpatients with 3 or more days in a hospital. You know, if you take the number of these patients around the world and multiply it by our validated price point of $125 per patient per year, that results in billions annually. And this doesn't even include, you know, outpatient opportunities with the new CPT codes and remote monitoring, or what we do in clinical trials. So the reason hospitals are signing now are really because of the ability to reduce length of stay using our product and potentially reduce risk of readmission. This is an example of a hospital that would see 1,000 patients that would qualify for our system. Based on a paper using our product, that would result in a $1.4 million return on investment. So next steps for us is, as always, as funding allows, I'd like to increase our marketing, which we do very little. I'd like to use the pilot data that we've been generating for 3 years, as well as the new CPT reimbursement codes to refine my pitch to hospitals for both inpatient and outpatient care. And of course, I want to prep for growth. We need to add automation in sales and in training, and then never stop getting better. That would include product development for 6, where we add cellular directly on our Stepwatch. Thank you.
What is your entry point? Is it PT/OT? What's your entry point to the system?
What part of the care system are we addressing? There are different ones right now. The physical therapy departments are really taking this on early, but it can actually also be used like in the nursing departments, wherever you want to get you need to get someone out of bed and moving before they leave the hospital. So we've had some early applications in that.
I know you only had 4 minutes to pitch, but can you talk a little bit about the management team, the strength of the bench that you have and where you might look to upgrade or add?
So your question was who's on my team?
Yeah, the team.
Okay, yeah, sure. So my background is I have a doctorate in biomedical engineering, and I've actually used this technology for almost 20 years, like with older versions when it was with other companies. I have a CTO who is an expert in cloud architecture and data security. We even have a 5-year contract with the VA, which is a really big deal because they have the most strictest security of the hospitals in the U.S. And others on my team, I have an incredible developer that has been designing our cloud and apps, project manager, and a logistics manager. So we are a small group, but lean and mean.
Thank you.
Is the pharma business the most profitable part of your business, and what could that fuel since you're cash flow positive?
Yeah, so absolutely. So our pharma sales are by far our biggest moneymaker. And as far as, it's like there's definitely a lot more potential, especially as they're learning that we are more sensitive than, let's say, a 6-minute walk test. And we're actually going to be getting to prove that very soon with the clinical trials we're in right now. And so I think there's a lot of potential there. I haven't really priced out the opportunity.
So congratulations on being profitable. I've been following your story for like 5 years, and I know how much you worked. So you mentioned you're cash flow positive. Can you share a little bit where your current margins are today, and where do you expect going forward if you can achieve a little bit of volume cost savings?
So your question is like, how much are we profitable today, and what are our next steps to?
It could be where it could be.
Where it could be. Got it. So we are, I would say, barely profitable. I'm very transparent. By I'd say 10 to 20,000 a year. But that's intentional because I want to scale. So I'm spending money where we can get better. Hence our product development. Where we can go, my goodness. So, I have 4 different pilots going on around the world where they're paying to use at a reduced rate. When those hit, we're going to get more at $125 per patient per year, which is fantastic. Expanding within the clinic is also a really wonderful opportunity because once you're in one part of the hospital, you can then expand it to another a bit more easily because they're already using the system. And then, of course, I do think clinical trials still has really great opportunities, and I'm hoping our experience with the pharmas we're already, have contracts with, that they expand us into other patient indications because we have publications with our product in over 30 patient conditions.
But you have an idea on your COGS?
So how much am I going to increase my cost to do those things? I feel for the next step, maybe somewhere between 1 and 2 million would help us get to that scalability we'd like to achieve, but I'm still refining exactly. Okay, thanks.
Up next, Mark Zemmel with Retia Medical. All right, some technical difficulties with the slide decks there, but up next we're going to actually have Innova Perkins with Scandinavian Real Heart.
Great slide deck. That's a good start. So my name is Innova Perkins, and I'm the CEO of Scandinavian Real Heart. I'm a biomedical scientist as my background, and we're making the world's first artificial heart that has a structure and function like the human heart. And we're doing this because of heart failure, which you heard about in the first pitch. And this is when the heart cannot pump enough blood. And the first patients that we're going to target are those that are on the waiting list for a heart transplant. Because the 10-year European data shows that 1 patient dies for each 3 patients that get a transplant. And these are unnecessary deaths that you could avoid with an artificial heart. You buy time and you buy yourself an option as a patient. But then the big impact and the big problem is, of course, there are so many patients that never get the opportunity to get a heart transplant. The major organ shortage is like 8,000 hearts in the world, and we estimate about 2.5 million patients dying and about 64 million patients globally with heart failure. So that's why we made the Real Heart. So on the inside is a pump that has 2 halves, just like the human heart, 2 atria and 2 ventricles, like the human heart. And in the middle is a valve plane, and it moves up and down with each beat, just like the human heart. So we have a natural pulsatile blood flow, and on the outside, we are working with, this should be nice to handle by the patient, so it should be silent, low weight, and long battery life. Our preclinical results, then we've compared with the market-leading device using human blood in the laboratory. So we see that we have less than half the blood damage. So we think that this should translate to less side effects in the clinic. And in vivo, we've seen no hemolysis, no thromboembolic events. We've also seen that we have a physiological pulsatile flow, blood pressure, and oxygen saturation. And we use an automatic control for the left-right balance and for how much the heart should pump. So we have pressure sensors to sense how much blood comes in and then automatically control that it matches the body's needs. So we met with the FDA, so we know what we need to do for the preclinical studies, and we're gathering this within the next 12 months. And we have a collaboration with a Swedish hospital to do the first in human. We also have interest from other clinics in Europe and the US. Our team has the knowledge of several different heart pumps, pacemakers, defibrillators, stents. We really try to gather lots of expertise, competence, and then we build that on top of that with academic partners. So we collaborate with several different international universities and have several different industrial partners to help us along the way. Our patent portfolio is 8 patent families. We have protection until 2037 in the main markets and in the emerging markets. And it covers more than just the Real Heart, so we're also looking for different licensing opportunities. We've designed it for automated production because we think it's really important that it has low cost, because we think that artificial hearts will be, in the future, what pacemakers used to be. Nowadays, it's completely normal, and there are lots of them, and they cost very little. So we need to be able to meet that price pressure in the future. And if we would implant in 6% of the waiting list in the EU and the US, this would be about 40 million euros in revenues. So we estimate to reach the market that we need 35 million euros, and we received the EIC accelerators. This is a nomination of 15 million euros equity investment. So what we're looking for now is for investors that want to join us for the match funding of this. And we've received lots of different grants, raised about 5 million euros so far in grants and about 20 million euros in Sweden in equity. So I think this is great. That doesn't really matter what I think. So I'll just leave you with the quotes of our different key opinion leaders that have gone in touch with our product so far. Thank you.
It's a really incredible problem that you're tackling. I imagine that you probably need really robust clinical data for an artificial heart, which is going to be pretty expensive. But maybe I'll ask Kwame, with your background with the FDA, I mean, what does something like this need to really get through? And it's got to be a lot of money, I would imagine.
Yeah, I wish my old colleague at the FDA, his name is Eric Shen. He oversaw LVAS for years, and now he works for regulatory at Abbott. But I remember them being extensive trials with pretty extensive follow-up. It's a long play, it's a journey, but I think there's promise in your technology.
So the primary endpoint for bridge to transplant would be 6-month follow-up, and I think that for destination therapy, we're looking at about 2 years follow-up, I think.
And And does this replace the LVAD then, or was it
No, so
clear?
LVADs are a complementary technology. So a lot of LVAD patients actually develop right heart failure. So these could be first getting an LVAD, and then you remove the whole heart and put in the artificial heart for the biventricular failure.
So I did some quick math on your capital needs. Looks like you're going to need somewhere in the neighborhood of 70-ish million euros to get to market. And you talked a little bit about other sources of capital. Do you have foundation capital or other non-dilutive sources of capital that you think you can tap into?
So I think you asked about different sources of capital. So we're stock listed on Swedish NASDAQ. So this would be one way to raise. And then we also have this equity nomination from the EIC. And we're in discussions with the European Investment Bank. They gave venture debt to our competitor in France of 30 million euros. So they go up to 50 million.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, perhaps I missed it. So you are publicly listed?
Yes.
How did you achieve that prior to having a product?
So it's not uncommon in Sweden, actually, to list pre-revenue. So we're on Nasdaq First North Growth.
If I remember correctly, there was a company called Carmat. They had a few issues during their trials, and could you just elaborate a little bit on your differentiation to that product?
So the Carmat is quite a complex design, so we've aimed for a more simplistic design, and they also have sort of manual production with their cow membrane that is part of their product. We have received European funding, grant funding, to do automated membrane production, so that's what we do. We're also next door neighbors to ABB, who do industrial robotics, so we try to see what else we can automate to make sure that the cost of production be as low as possible.
Does the device need any form of maintenance once it's installed?
So it's typical for heart pump patients to go back to the clinic regularly for maintenance, and you need to be on a blood thinner, which compared to heart transplant, those patients need to be on immunosuppressive therapy for the rest of their life with the side effects including cancer. You don't have that problem with an artificial heart. And then, of course, you need to be trained in how to manage your batteries and how to connect to the main grid at night. But we gather lots of data from the controllers, so we'd be able to detect if something would happen. Okay. Thank you.
All right, up next is Sanjay Shrivastava with Innova Vascular.
Thank you for inviting me to present here. From 2007 to 2011, I led an R&D team that developed a clot retriever for acute ischemic stroke called Solitaire FR. Solitaire today is sold by Medtronic and is the market leader in neurovascular clot removal with 60% market share. I went and did a few other things after that, including a company to form clot in the body, which exited earlier this year. Then I started to think together with my team, who was very conversant with clot and how to attach, how to remove the clot, how to grab it, and all that through interventional means. We started to look at where else in the body is clot is a big problem. And there is 1 million patients in the US alone where clot forms in the peripheral vascular veins, leading to a condition called deep vein thrombosis. More than half of these will get the clot shot into lungs, leading to a condition called pulmonary embolism, which gives symptoms akin to heart disease, heart attack. And that leads to about 100,000 deaths each year. So we started to look at creating solutions for that. Today, the market, before I talk about the solution, just a little bit, that this is real market numbers. There were about $1 billion market to remove clot from peripheral vasculature. About $1 billion market going to about $3 billion market by 2030. We have created and received FDA clearance on a set of aspiration catheters called Malibu aspiration catheters and a set of clot retrievers called Laguna clot retriever. I'm going to take a moment to show you the underlying mechanism of the product.
Introducing a new way to safely remove blood clots without the use of thrombolytics or surgery. The Laguna thrombectomy system from Innova Vascular. The system consists of two parts, the Laguna clot retriever and the Malibu aspiration catheter. The Laguna clot retriever system features a laser-cut nitinol design. It is available in 10mm and 14mm diameters. The Malibu aspiration catheter is highly navigable and provides increased distal flexibility. It is available in 4 different diameters to allow for use in blood vessels of varying sizes. Here's how the device would work to remove a clot from peripheral vasculature. The Malibu aspiration catheter is inserted into the vasculature in a minimally invasive manner. The catheter has a curved tip with an atraumatic design for increased patient safety. The dilator helps navigate the Malibu aspiration catheter to the clot. Once the catheter reaches the clot, the dilator is removed and aspiration is applied using the 60 cc syringe, leading to the removal of the clot. If any clot remains, the Laguna clot retriever can be deployed to dislodge and retrieve the clot. The Laguna retriever, along with its sheath, is inserted into the Malibu aspiration catheter and guided up until it has made its way through the clot. The Laguna retriever is then deployed by pulling the sheath back, capturing the clot in and around it. Its radiopaque body markers enable outstanding visualization. The clot is then retrieved using the retriever and aspiration catheter, restoring the blood flow.
There are 2 competitors in the field that have product cleared for PE. Inari is incredibly successful, posting about $470 million in revenue. Penumbra's products in this space are about $30 million. We have clear differentiation that our retriever is a laser-cut hypotube type design, laser-cut cylindrical design. Penumbra only has aspiration catheter, where also we have broader and more flexible sizes based on the neurovascular background that my team has. Doctors have reported that the products are easy to use. We are again FDA cleared with $8 million invested in the company on multiple sizes. We have FDA clearance. We have freedom to operate as well. So to summarize my points there, that's a very, very attractive market. We're FDA cleared, and we're looking for $5 million to raise.
Thanks, Sanjay. Are you? Did you say that you're commercializing now? I know you said you had clearance, but have you started to build the commercial team and commercialize yet?
Yeah, great question, Ken. So I met with half a dozen strategics, and literally every one of them is interested in discussing something with us, and we're going to talk. But to me, those types of deals could take 6 to 9 months. So I'm hoping that leads into something, potentially a distribution deal leading to an acquisition. So to answer your question, we are going to do a 107-patient clinical study as well to get the PE treatment indication. That's approved. The study is approved by the FDA. In that duration, we want to bring a couple of salespeople that can manage the distribution network and do a limited commercialization, hoping that a strategic is the one that would broaden the commercialization.
Great, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the use of proceeds, how much capital you're raising, and then what are you planning on using the capital to support the company's further commercialization and other studies?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
So use of proceeds for the next round?
What will we do with the money?
Correct.
So the clinical study, 107-patient clinical study, will cost about $3 million. We also want to bring some commercial sales leaders, so add headcount to do that as well. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, and up next we have Pau Rodriguez with Methinks AI.
Good afternoon. So when we started the company, we thought about how can we use AI
so that every single hospital in the world could have access to diagnostic capabilities, and every patient, no matter where they went, they had access to the best treatment. And the first focus was on stroke, because in stroke, time is brain. Every minute until you get the treatment increases the risk of disability and death. But how does it work? Stroke care systems are organized by a hub and a spoke, so a smaller hospital that identifies a patient and transfers the patient to have a stroke treatment. The problem is that there is a delay in this transfer to the patient and has a huge impact. But let's look at the workflow. A patient arrives to a hospital, they get an on-contrast CT, they discard an hemorrhage, but then they need to inject contrast to see the vascularity of the brain and see if there is a clot and how damaged it is. And based on that, they decide to transfer the patient. The problem is that half of the hospitals worldwide don't have access to contrast medical imaging. And even if they had, they would reduce time to treatment. So what we've built is an AI software that with a basic CT scan universally available can assess a stroke treatment and have a huge impact. This way, we can save thousands of lives and disabilities, reduce healthcare costs, and have an important economic impact for hospitals and pharma companies, medical device companies. So our solution is this software is integrated within Microsoft Teams, and basically from the CT scan sends to the PACS, that is the server with these images, goes to the cloud, and we send a notification to all the healthcare professionals. They can chat, they can discuss, and they can see the images and make an immediate decision. We obtained the CE mark. We are soon going to obtain FDA clearance, and we are able to see hemorrhages and clots with contrast and non-contrast CTs. There are many competitors out there that are focused on stroke, but only 2 of them do something similar. One is cleared in the US, other in Europe, but the performance is very poor, and they cannot see all the solutions. We believe to have the best product in the world to assess from non-contrast CTs. And on top of that, we're building a pipeline of products that you can see the size of the infarct, the volume, the location of the clot, that these could have a reimbursement and push this through. We're a portfolio company of Nina Capital. We have 2 venture capitalists in the team, one of the most reputed key opinion leaders, and we recently incorporated as independent Susan Wood, that is the CEO of an AI software company in the US. We're a team of around 20 people, and we just hired a couple of persons from commercial director and implementation director from a competitor in the US. And we have the support of reputed key opinion leaders. At this point, what we want to do is to validate our technology, increasing the implementations that we have in the US, in Europe, and Latin America to validate the product market fit. So far, we've raised 10 million. At this point, we have 5 million available, and we really need to prove the impact of our technology in all these healthcare systems to then do a Series A that will allow us to deploy this technology globally. What we want is that every single patient in the world, no matter the hospital they go, they had access to the best treatment possible. Thank you very much.
What is the accuracy of your software algorithm in terms of diagnosis? And is this going to be an aid to diagnosis, or is this actually going to be the diagnostic tool?
This is a triage tool. So we are 74/95 sensitivity and specificity, including M1 and M2 occlusions that are more distal occlusions. Our competitors are 63/95. So we are with more accuracy, and we can see more distal occlusions.
And are you able to distinguish between the type of clot, ischemic or hemorrhagic, or is that something that's coming?
Yeah, so we're working, we have some preliminary studies based on the clot composition, so you can see more, with more fibrin, there are more tough clots, or more red blood cells. We're trying to see at the reperfusion success rate. There are different things that we can do. We can discuss that later.
So from a reimbursement pathway economic model standpoint, I'm guessing there's probably not established codes for this. What's the plan?
Yeah. So until now, there is the NTAP for LVO with contrast, and that's extended use by our competitors, there is some reimbursement that is outpatient for saving the hyperdensity of hemorrhages, for example. So we could leverage that path, and that's something we're still exploring, but there are some paths around that.
So maybe just to build on that, can you talk a little bit about the value proposition to the hospital for adoption of this technology? Are you saving the money, or are you, I mean, you're obviously improving care?
No, absolutely. So imagine a network. You have a non-affiliate spoke or any spoke. If you get a patient immediately from that spoke and you do an endovascular treatment, you can get a 20K margin per patient. If you reduce 15 minutes the transfer of the patient, these have a huge impact in the outcomes of patients, so the length of stay. So it's a no-brainer, and this has been not only shown in many publications, it's very well known. So that's what we're going to measure now, prospectively. What's the time saving, and translate that into savings?
Yeah, I just had a question. Accuracy and sensitivity. Why is it so much better than the competitors? Is it quality of data? Is it amount of data? Is it your algorithm? What do you think? What's your...
I don't know how they do it. I know how we do it. And basically, we curate our data very much. And it's not about hiring a bunch of engineers and trying to do it. You really need to curate the data. You really need to see what you're looking for, how diverse it is, how you need to train all the data. Also, we won the gold medal at the hemorrhage detection of the Radiological Society of North America. We won 2 times these competitions. So we're very good at this.
How much of that is machine learning? How much of that is algorithms?
I wouldn't be able to say, to be honest. It's a combination of these things. But certainly, it's not only the data itself, it's how you create the data, how you label, and how you train.
So I worked with a lot of Red AI softwares before, and can you talk a lot about your team? Because one of the challenging radiology AI is adoption from radiologists. Radiologists. Can you talk a little about your team? Like who's
this is a complex. So typically, the interventionist, the person who is really interested in getting this technology. But again, you have the neurologists, you have the radiologists, you have the IT. So we start by understanding how this helps the interventionist, but we involve all the parts. And also, the technology part is very important because they are a gatekeeper.
All right, up next is James Biggins with Access Vascular.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Biggins. I'm the president, founder, and CEO of Access Vascular. We're a commercial stage medical device company focused on addressing the most common and costly complications plaguing the $4.5 billion vascular access market. We do this by incorporating our proprietary biomaterial into all of the products that we commercialize. You may be surprised to learn that 85% of anyone that walks in and is treated in a hospital setting will receive some sort of vascular access device at some point during the treatment. This can range from short-term peripheral IVs to long-term devices such as ports. Unfortunately for patients, about 30% of all of these devices will fail at some point. The failure could involve the occlusion of the device, which would prevent therapy and ultimately longer stays in the hospital, to much more severe and impactful economically and to the patient conditions like deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolisms, and of course, catheter-acquired bloodstream infections. We're clearly not the first people to identify this as a problem, as you've heard today, but we know that some of our competitors have leveraged their polyurethane platform and tried to add coatings or additives, but to no avail. Unfortunately, in a clinical setting, all of these technologies have failed. We've taken a fundamentally different approach, and we're changing that polyurethane platform to a completely novel material that's never been used for these applications, and that's what significantly differentiates us from everyone else in this space, and we're calling that platform Mimics. Just to give you a better articulation of exactly the problem that we're solving, this is actually one of our competitors that have gone through blood flow loop testing, And as you can tell, there's quite a bit of thrombus accumulation on that device, which has completely encapsulated their product. This is the future of vascular access. This is our product that's gone through the exact same testing, and as you can see, there is no accumulation of blood components on our device. We do have significant amount of intellectual property based on the material, as well as what it takes to make our material into actual products, which is not very obvious given the complexities of the material. We've treated 7,500 patients to date. We have 2 retrospective studies that have demonstrated near elimination of complications when it comes to our product. In addition, we've recently published data on bacterial adhesion and got a 4.5 log reduction in bacterial adhesion. So it's really the combination of this data and the experience that our clinicians are having on a daily basis treating their patients that gives us the confidence that we're developing the next 30 to 50 years of innovation in the vascular access space. And we're seeing that transformational efficacy unlike anything that's currently available in the market today, which will position us nicely to be the provider or the ideal provider for these types of devices moving forward. It is a platform technology, as you can see here. We have lots of applications in vascular access and even beyond vascular access itself. We've recently closed on our Series C. There's some additional space, but for the most part it's spoken for. We'll use this to execute on our commercial plan and hit specific revenue numbers that we've planned out with our board, and also proliferate the technology into other available products. We do have a team of 70 located right outside of Boston in our 40,000 square foot manufacturing facility. We're supported by a number of medical and technical advisors, as well as a board of directors that have a vast amount of experience taking products from concept to commercialization. Although most of our round is spoken for as of now, I would be interested in speaking with, certainly with strategics, as well as any number of investors that are passionate about really improving outcomes and addressing some of the biggest challenges in healthcare today and extending life for millions of patients. Thank you for your time. Pardon? So we sell directly to hospitals. So we have 2, for the past 9 months, we've had 2 direct sales reps selling directly to hospitals. So it's a recurring revenue. Hospitals use these on a monthly basis, so we can either go under contract or sell on a monthly basis.
Maybe you've talked about it, but what's the pricing?
So right now we've gone in at cost parity for most of these hospitals just so we can get adoption and start to build the story significantly as we move towards price premium. Unfortunately, I didn't get to talk about our play on value-based care. Obviously, value-based care is critically important, and outcome-based is critically important, which is a cornerstone of our value proposition as we get into hospitals, right? It's value-based care and improving outcomes is the hottest topic at all levels of healthcare, and so the ability to sell on value is critically important.
What market conversion rate are you looking at?
I'm sorry?
The market conversion, like how many hospitals do you think you'll convert into using your technology in the first year, for instance?
Yeah, so I think I understood your question correctly. We're currently in 23 hospitals. We have 43 hospitals in various stages of evaluation, which includes some of the most prominent institutions across the U.S.
So congrats on the progress, Jim. Sounds like you just closed Series C. Congrats on that as well.
Thanks, Ken.
From a commercialization standpoint, I think you said you have 2 reps, you're in 23 hospitals. But what's the next plan? What's the plan over like the next 12 months? You're going to build a direct sales force? Or are you going to try to have a commercial partner? Do you know yet?
Yeah, we definitely know. So we've just hired 4 more as of the last month in anticipation of closing. And so, the intent isn't to go across the country and, have this giant sales force. It's really target specific geographic regions and take market share from the big players in the space and grab their attention.
Great, thanks.
What about geographic expansion outside the U.S.?
So based on the regulations outside of the U.S., we're planning on staying in the U.S. for some time. That's for a larger company to do at this point, but really focusing on generating clinical evidence and increasing our sales and taking market share is what we're focused on.
You're pricing at parity right now. Once you've gained traction and adoption, what type of premium factor, premium delta do you anticipate?
Yeah, so as we continue to release additional clinical data and show very compelling data, right, eliminating complications zero is a very attractive number. And then on top of that, you look at our bacterial adhesion data, it's quite significant. So over time, we'll move to that 25% premium. A lot of what we're focused on is structuring our value-based contracts correctly in order to extract additional value, right? It's easy enough to adopt if it's at price parity, but as we're demonstrating value and guaranteeing performance to hospitals, we want to extract at least a 25% premium.
I think I saw you have a serial 510K strategy, and that allows you to grow in different markets. Was I understanding that slide properly?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So it's just the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, obviously in dialysis, right, the dialysis space is tremendous. It's a reason why they went away from dialysis catheters and moved towards grafts, is because any of the dialysis catheters today don't work that well because they occlude very quickly. And so our ability to provide value in different care settings in the dialysis side is critically important to our strategy as well. Great. Thank you very much.
And up next is John Slump with Volta Medical.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Slump. I'm here to tell you about an exciting opportunity in the medical device space. Volta Medical is actually based in Marseille, France. It's a company founded by 3 cardiac electrophysiology physicians and a data scientist. The company's raised over 70 million euro to date. It's pretty well funded. Actually just closed the 36 million Series B with Vensana Capital with co-investment from Gilda and Lightstone. The company has 510K clearance and CE mark that is pre-commercial. We're actually investing heavily in clinical evidence generation, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So what are we doing at Volta? We're really focused on the atrial fibrillation or AFib disease state. You can see a great quote up here from MedTech Insight, but this is one of the largest and fastest growing markets in medical device. AFib affects over 37 million people worldwide, and cardiovascular disease is still the #1 killer. More specifically, you can kind of see from an ablation perspective. So, that there's drug therapy or ablation, and actually this mechanical ablation procedures have become standard of care. The device market for ablation is scheduled to double from $5 billion to $10 billion over the next several years. And when you really look at the problem for atrial fibrillation ablation, the existing ablation catheter devices aren't really all that effective. When we started the business, or the founders started the business, maybe it was more like 50% effective. Now there have been new technologies. Some of you may have heard me on the panel the other day as the co-founder of Farapulse. They even just came out with their advent studies showing in persistent AFib still only 70% effectiveness in treating atrial fibrillation on a first-time procedure, which is substantially similar to radiofrequency-based cardiac ablation. And the reality is these procedures can be really long and arduous, and while PFA was really invented to be a kind of fail-fast strategy, not a better clinical outcome strategy, we think RF is here to stay, and in particular will still be continue to be a pretty significant portion of the market. And so Volta is actually a software as a device. We do have essentially a custom laptop device, but we plug and play to your existing recorder system and kind of give you AI decision support to identify additional areas of interest to ablate in addition to pulmonary vein isolation. We're actually running, the device has been used in over 1,000 procedures in more than 30 centers with 50 users in 5 countries. And we're very proud of that. And this is really where we've invested the vast majority of our capital. So the initial study, EV-AFib, was a multicentric prospective study, but the real bellwether is the Tailored AF study, which is a landmark 374 patient randomized clinical trial seeking to show a statistically significant improvement in first-time ablation outcomes relative to pulmonary vein isolation alone. So it's PVI in the one arm, which is the standard of care for ablating atrial fibrillation, and PVI plus Volta, which is helping to identify additional areas of interest. We've completed enrollment in that study last year. The 12-month follow-up is actually coming up here by the end of this year, and the study will be published in the first quarter, if not early second quarter of 2024. And that's really what's going to kind of launch our commercialization efforts and kick off a Series C fundraise for us. So in terms of the acquirer universe, I mean, I think you can see several of the usual suspects. Boston Scientific bought FARAPULSE for a deal up to $800 million. They're actually in Europe helping to obviate some mapping systems, so we think it could be a pretty interesting partnership. There are several others that could make sense for a lot of reasons. Thank you.
I'm trying to better understand what the technology does. So software as a medical device, is it an overlay on top of a mapping system, or is it an overlay on top of a system like FARAPULSE or a FARA or one of the PFA systems?
Yeah, it's an electrogram-based kind of AI decision support tool that's an overlay on your mapping system. Kind of plugs into your PROCA or your GE recording system, and also we have actually R&D collaborations with all the big mapping companies where we've invested in interoperability and compatibility with their mapping systems.
So does it help you target where to burn, or what exactly does it do?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Can you talk a little bit about the pricing and sort of how you work within the reimbursement system for AF?
So again, we're pre-revenue. We actually just invested in a pretty significant third-party market research endeavor to this. So we have some ideas, but there's a DRG bundle in the U.S. It's about a $23,000 bundle. So our initial plan is to price the product and be paid for out of that existing bundle. Now, we did hire a VP of marketing and market access and reimbursement, and we are going after some more specific reimbursement for this product category, and I think that'll be really helpful in the long run. But we think we can capture anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 per year per hospital on the low end, upwards of $500,000 to $600,000 in the high end for larger volume persistent AFib ablation centers. And we even have one center now who's using the product as part of a registry study in paroxysmal, which is pretty exciting.
Have you done any work on the AI for arrhythmia detection side of things, or is that totally separate from what you guys are focused on?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's on our product roadmap, and we have about 90 employees now at Volta, of which there are 50 strong in the R&D team for software engineering, data science, et cetera, all located in Marseille. And so we have a well-oiled machine and a strong pipeline of new products and algorithms. And what you mentioned is one of them. VT is also another one. Yep.
Can you comment a little bit about yourself and your team?
Sorry, what was the question?
Can you comment a little about yourself and your team?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the CFO. I'm no stranger to doing multiple med device companies concomitantly. That's kind of how I cut my teeth as a young entrepreneur. I think I was doing FARAPULSE, Attune, and Corvida, 3 different med device companies at the same time. But we have 3 physician co-founders. One of them is the president, one of them is the chief medical officer, and another one's the VP Med Affairs. And our young data scientist co-founder is the CEO. We've recently hired a VP sales in John Kowalski, who actually built the Biosense business from the ground up. I think we're pretty excited. We have 10 clinical development managers in the U.S. really helping to support clinical trials, but we're just starting to recruit for some regional business directors and/or top-notch sales experts. If anyone knows, that would be a great way to help us out. Top talent on the sales side in the U.S. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, last but not least, Mark Zemmel with Retia Medical.
Hi, I'm Mark Semmel, CEO and co-founder of Retia Medical. We make the Argos hemodynamic monitor for protecting high-risk patients in the OR and the ICU. We're commercial stage. We just opened recently our Series B2. So early detection of shock is the key to protecting these patients from costly complications. So 15 million people every year in the US have a high-risk surgery or stay in the ICU, and they're at high risk for these complications such as an acute kidney injury or a cardiac injury, and those cost up to $30 billion every year. Up to 70% of these high-risk patients experience shock when the blood pressure drops below 65, and the longer the patient is in shock, the higher the complication risk. So today, actually, most of these patients go into hidden shock, which transitions into hypotension, and that alarms on the bedside monitor, forcing the clinicians to react quickly with very few options. So what we do with our Argos hemodynamic monitor is we detect hidden shock. We have 10 parameters to both detect the problem and guide the treatment. Unlike some AI systems will warn deterioration, then they don't tell you, how to treat it. We give you both the detection and the guidance for what to do. It's a 1-minute nurse-driven setup. Our patented multi-beat analysis algorithm was developed by an MIT PhD and is proven to be 50% more accurate than the leading competitor in this space. We're the only monitor that's accurate in cardiogenic shock and arrhythmia. We have FDA and CE mark. Here's an example. A patient had abdominal surgery, and John, the ICU nurse, he said, "I don't need your monitor," right? Blood pressure's fine, heart rate's fine, clinical exam fine. Turned out when they hooked up our monitor, they detected a hidden bleed. And this is a serious problem because you're talking 10 to 20% mortality risk, you're talking $18,000 per event. You find 2 of these in 5 years with our monitor, it's already paid for itself. So this is a $4 billion market. Right now we're going after the 20 million patients every year that get an arterial line for monitoring for shock. Ultimately, we have a non-invasive algorithm that doesn't require an A-line. We'll go after the 100 million patients at elevated risk of complications. We have a growing network of hospitals that are our customers today. You can see many of the leading centers, including some of the folks here on stage, are not only our customers, but repeat customers. This past year, we've gotten on contract with Premier and Vizient and in the VA. Customers love our product. We have a net promoter score of 78, where typical MedTech is in the teens. Our repeat buyers are a big part of our install base, and they use our monitor over and over again. And you can see in the OR, they mount us to the anesthesia machine. In the ICU, they'll mount us next to their infusion pumps where they're titrating their medications. By 2027, we'll be growing our revenue up to about $25 million, which is still about 10% penetration of our target install base. We're going after 140,000 beds in the US. ASP is about $25,000, gross profit 85%. So it's highly profitable for us, yet it saves millions for each hospital. An experienced team with prior exits in the space. We have an outstanding world-class advisory board of anesthesiologists and intensivists. Our vision is to enable AI-assisted cardiopulmonary care. So we're not going to automate care, we're going to assist the clinician in making those decisions. And because blood flows everywhere, it's an essential component of the whole parameter system that strategics need to guide and protect these patients. You can see that there are several consolidated companies in this space. We had a Series B led by Medtronic and Fresenius. I invite you to join on our journey. Thank you so much.
I just want to understand something correctly. So your product right now is an AI software that takes the input is from standard hospital-based systems, but then in the future you intend to develop something that is an alternative to the A-line?
Yeah, so we analyze the arterial blood pressure waveform, and then we give you cardiac output, stroke volume, systemic vascular resistance, these advanced parameters that map your circulation. And then our next product will be an algorithm that analyzes non-invasive signals for those patients that don't get an A-line.
Hey, Mark, congrats on the progress. Thanks. Been following your company for a while now. You kind of glossed over this at the end, but I talked to you about this earlier today or yesterday. You just got Medtronic and Fresenius to invest in your Series B. Very impressive. Can you give us some more details around that?
Yeah, you know, the round is hard to bring it up, but my best sales in 5 minutes. I got on the phone with Al Wegman and I told him what we're doing. He's like, okay, let me get you in front of the investment committee. So he led the round, and then once I got the term sheet, I called up Dave Newstater, who I've known for 15 years, and I said, you want to come in? So the whole round team came together in 1 week, right?
Yeah, great job.
That fast, right? But all the work up to that point, right? As you know.
So this may be a moot question because you already have customers, but did you have to show reduction in complication rate or reduction in cost, or what did you have to prove to get into the hospitals?
The main thing was to prove accuracy. So the market leader in this space, Edwards, doesn't always work. And you talk to anesthesiologists and they look at the monitor and it doesn't line up with their clinical judgment, and so they ignore it. It's a $65,000 monitor that ends up in the closet. And it just takes that one failure for them to lose trust in that technology. So we showed that we worked consistently, and then they buy and they keep buying. So today we sell direct. We have 6 reps. We're targeting $1 million per rep, and as we add more territories, then we'll be able to replicate that sales process across the U.S.
Maybe just as a follow-up to that, you know, this is hand-to-hand combat in this particular sector. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, some of the biggest challenges that you see in selling into that market right now and the competition you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, our competitive win rate is 90%. You know, the losses we had, we weren't going after the right target. So generally when we get in, you know, they see the difference. The Edwards monitor is very difficult to use. It takes 20, 30 minutes to set up. So the fact that you can come in and you have trusted data and, you know, a nurse can do it, you know, his or herself, you know, it's a no-brainer for them. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's give all the entrepreneurs a big round of applause. That was great. So we're going to collect all of the scoring sheets and we'll do some calculations and then we'll announce the winner. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Sigma AV team for such a wonderful job keeping everything running smoothly. Thank you, guys. And we'll be back up shortly to announce the winner. We have a winner. So let's all be seated. And at this point, I'm going to call up Dylan from MedTech World and Giovanni from Lifeblood to join me on stage. I'd like Marion to come up as well to help present the award. And it was very close. So good job to all the entrepreneurs. That was incredible. Incredible pitches, incredible technologies. Very honored to have shared the stage with you. The winner is Mark Zemmel with Retia Medical. Good job.